So those were real.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Danny Thomas Show. My name is Danny Thomas, and before I start my act this evening, I wanted to let you know a little bit about myself. I was born with Jakub on a horse ranch in Deerfield, Michigan on January 6, 1914. My parents are from the old country of Lebanon, and in Lebanon at the time they had arranged marriages. Now, my supposed-to-be mom, Julia, moved to Toledo when she was 10 years old. And my father, at the ripe old age of 16, went to claim his bride. And when he went there, he found out that his wife was already a married woman. Now, in Toledo, when another man steals an arranged bride, they have a shootout. Now, my father was a very peaceful man, and he was very bad with a gun, so he decided he was going to just go to the married couple and give them his blessings. When he went there, he met Julia's little sister, Margaret, and they fell in love, and a year later they were married. A year after I was born, my parents decided they were going to Christianize our names. I am one of 9 siblings. I have 4 older brothers, and I have a little sister named Emily and 4 younger brothers. My name became Amos because my brother William one day was playing in a stream when all of a sudden the current got too strong and it started carrying down the stream. Now this Irish man named Amos saved his life, and that's how I got Amos Jacobs. Around the same time that I was born, my father started getting into gambling, and he had a really bad gambling problem. And he decided he was going to gamble our ranch one night because he was getting into the game. And he thought he was going to win because he thought he was very good at it, but he ended up losing our ranch, so we moved to Toledo back with my family. In Toledo, my mom became very sick, so my Aunt Julia and Uncle Tony came to take care of me because I was the youngest at the time. And that's when I grew very close to my Aunt Julia. I was able to live with my Aunt Julia and Uncle Tony and play with my siblings as well because they raised me, and since my Aunt Julia couldn't have kids of her own, I was able to go back and forth between houses. At the age of 12, my brother Ray and I decided we wanted to get a job. The local theater had opening, so my brother and I sold candy and soda at the theater. And at the theater, that's where I really fell in love with comedy, and my favorite comedian was Abe Reynolds, and he was a Jewish comedian, and he was very fun to watch. And a year after I got my job, my Aunt Julia and Uncle Tony moved to New York. And in New York, they decided they were going to bring me because I was like their son. And they opened a coffee shop. Now, I was supposed to be a freshman in high school at the time, but I decided that I wasn't going to go to school, and I was going to go to the movies. It wasn't a very smart decision, but at the time it's what I wanted to do. So I skipped school and I went to the movies, and my Aunt Julia eventually caught on to what I was doing, and she moved me back to Toledo. And I wanted to be close with my brother Ray, so I decided I was going to enroll myself as a sophomore in high school, and I was only supposed to be a freshman. This worked well at the beginning because no one caught on until halfway through the year when I got called into the principal's office, and they told me that I was either going to have to drop back to freshman year or I was going to get kicked out of school. Now, I was very stubborn at the time, and I didn't want to repeat freshman year, so I dropped out of school completely. This was one of the biggest regrets of my life because later on in my career, you'll see that I did not get very far. Now, I waited for my brother to graduate from high school, and then we started a brother act. The brother act was Ray and Amos Jacobs, and we were going to go eventually make it to the big screen. We had a whole plan set out, but unfortunately my brother Ray found the love of his life, Mary, and they got married. Now, Mary was a sweet girl and everyone liked her, but she was not understanding of my dream and my brother Ray's dream of performing. So she told him that if she was going to marry him, then he was going to have to quit his job and work at the docks with all the other immigrant families. So he quit his job and he worked at the immigrant docks and left me to do my own job. Now, since I did not have an education, I did not get a decent job, I moved to Detroit to live with extended family, and that's when I got a job at the Happy Hour Club. And the Happy Hour Club was a happy time for me because I met the love of my life, Rosemary, and her family was not big fans of mine. In fact, they didn't like me very much at all, but they let me marry Rosemary, and we got married, and shortly after our marriage, I found out that my Aunt Julia got hit by a car, and she died. So I went to Toledo to visit with my Uncle Tony when he told me he was diagnosed with liver cancer, and a few months later he died. This was very hard for me because that's like losing your parents, because I spent most of my time with them. Well, about when I came back to Detroit, my wife Rosie was pregnant with my first daughter, Marlo, and I had to push on and get a job. Now at the time I had $600 saved, which was pretty good because I was able to provide for me and my family, and it was supposed to be a good time. But one of my bosses at one of the clubs I worked at convinced me to put my $600 into his savings so that he could make the club bigger and better. Well, a month after we invested all our money into it, the club crashed and I was left with the $7 I had in my pocket. And this was hard because you can't really raise a family with $7. So that's when I acted on this huge leap of faith, which not a lot of people did at the time. And I went to church. And I put the $7 in the donation box, and I asked God if he could please just give me a job so I could pay for the hospital delivery bill. And then I would be able to take care of my family. Well, the next day, I got a call from a Maytag commercial, and they asked me to do a commercial, and I would get $75. So I did the commercial, and 2 days later, at the hospital, my wife had our first daughter, Margaret Julia, after my mom and my aunt. And the hospital bill was $74.80. It was quite miraculous that I had enough money for that. And I was very grateful for that, so I decided that since God answered my prayers, I was just going to be happy with the $7 I got. So I started settling for any job that I could find, because that's what I was going to do. When one time I was sitting at a bar after my performance, and a man came up to me. And he told me the story about his wife. Now, he was drunk, and I wasn't going to listen, but he got my attention when he said that his wife was diagnosed with this cancer, this terminal cancer, and she wasn't going to live. That's hard because he was going to lose love of his life. So he went to church and he prayed to St. Jude. St. Jude is like patron saint of lost causes. Anyone who feels like they're going nowhere in life can pray to St. Jude. And that's what he did. And a few days later, his wife had a miraculous recovery, and she was back on her feet, and she's still alive. And the man's promise to St. Jude was, if you save my wife, then I will tell everyone I meet about your miracle. So Danny Thomas I heard about this. And I decided I was going to go to church and try it out. So it was a Wednesday afternoon, and I went to church, and I sat down in a pew, and I said, if you help me find my way in life, then I will build you a shrine. And the next day, I decided I was going to visit my friend Earl Ebby in Chicago. Earl and I were friends from back in Toledo, and I thought maybe he could help me. Well, he helped me get a job at the 5100 Club, which is the start of my career. And the boss of the 5100 Club was Harry Egger, and he was a very nice man, and he said, if you give me your name, then I'll put your name on the billboard outside so everyone will come in and see you. I was about to say Amos Jacobs when I realized that that name probably won't grab a lot of people's attention. That's when I changed my name to Danny Thomas, after my youngest brother and my oldest brother. And that's how the name got started. Now, at the 5100 Club is where I got into my storytelling. I consider myself to be a storyteller. I don't tell jokes, but I tell stories. Now, two of my famous stories was about this man named Callahan. And back then, I was allowed to make a lot of religious jokes and immigrant jokes, and they were considered appropriate. So one of my jokes was about an Irishman who went to church, and he got into this fight. But I can't really, now I'm not allowed to say it anymore because it is considered illegal. And I had made a lot of racist jokes as well, but it was like the dirty jokes of the time that were considered funny. But most of them were about priests and rabbis, and one of the famous ones that I'm known for is when a priest and a rabbi went to a rush bar, which is a gay bar now. And they sit down. They didn't realize they were at the gay bar, but they noticed that there was a lot of men, and they didn't really pay much attention to it until one man came up and asked the priest to dance. Now, the priest was a very conservative man who did not want to dance and did not want to do anything like that, so he kept saying no, no, no. But the man was not listening. So the rabbi pulled the man aside, and they started talking. So the man came back to the priest and said, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to bother you, and congratulations. The priest turned to the rabbi and said, why did that man just say congratulations? And the rabbi says, well, I told him we were on our honeymoon. Now, at the time, that joke got a lot of laughs, and it's one of my famous jokes. So after the 5100 Club on December 7th, 1941, there was the attack in Pearl Harbor. Now, I am a very patriotic person, I was very excited to, I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to fulfill my patriotic duty. When I went to sign up for the draft, they told me they were not accepting married men with